There's a moment that quietly shows up for a lot of people in their late 50s, usually around 56, 57, or 58. On paper, everything still looks fine. They're earning well, they're saving, their accounts have grown, they're doing what they always done. But internally, something shifts. Work doesn't feel energizing anymore. It feels obligatory. Not because they hate what they do, but because they're not sure they can stop. And here's what's interesting. In most cases, it's not that they need to keep working. It's that no one ever helped them understand what actually allows retirement to work. Once that understanding clicks, once the focus shifts from accumulation to structure, the timeline changes. The question often becomes, why am I still working past 58? Today, I want to walk you through that shift, because once you understand it, retirement stops feeling like a distant finish line and starts feeling like a decision. Hi, I'm Mark Aarons, president of Money Managers Inc. This is a conversation I have regularly with people who are approaching retirement, have done many things right. They've worked hard, they've saved consistently, they've been responsible, yet they still feel stuck. Not because they are behind, but because no one ever showed them how to transition from earning income to living on income. If you find this kind of clarity helpful, feel free to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Here's what we'll cover together. Why many people work longer than they actually need to. The mental shift that changes retirement timing. Why age matters less than structure. And how understanding this framework can make work optional, not mandatory. Let's walk through this together. Why people keep working past 58? Most people assume they're working longer because they don't have enough money. That's rarely the full story. What I see far more often is this. They have assets, sometimes significant assets, but they don't have clarity. They don't know how much income their savings can actually produce, how stable that income would be, how taxes will affect it, or how long it's designed to last. With those answers, work becomes the safety net. Not because it's ideal, but because it's predictable. And predictable feels safe. For most of your working life, the strategy is straightforward. Earn more, save more, grow the accounts. That approach works extremely well for decades. The problem is that retirement is not an extension of that phase. It's a different phase entirely. If the plan never transitions, people stay mentally anchored to accumulation. They tell themselves, one more year of saving, one more year of benefits, one more year of certainty. That's how just a little longer quietly turns into 5 or 7 extra years of work. One of the most surprising things for people is this. More money doesn't always reduce anxiety. Without structure, it can actually increase it. Larger balances bring larger questions. What if markets drop? What if taxes rise? What if I take too much too soon? What if I stop too early? When there's no income framework, those questions don't resolve themselves. They compound. That's why so many capable, disciplined savers still feel unsure in their late 50s. The real shift that changes retirement timing. Here's the moment that changes everything. When work income stops being the foundation of the plan and becomes optional. That shift doesn't require hitting a magic net worth number. It requires understanding how your assets turn into income. Once income is structured, work becomes a choice instead of a requirement. That's the difference between feeling trapped and feeling flexible. Why age 58 is often the tipping point? There's nothing legally special about age 58, but psychologically, it's significant. By your late 50s, retirement feels close enough to matter. Career changes feel less appealing. Energy becomes more valuable than growth. Time starts to feel more limited. This is often when people realize, I don't want to do this forever, but I don't yet see how to stop. That gap between desire and understanding is where uncertainty lives. Income is what retires you, not net worth. People don't retire on net worth. They retire on income, predictable income, repeatable income, tax-aware income. When someone understands how much income their portfolio can support, where that income comes from, and how reliable it is, how it adjusts over time, fear begins to fade. That's usually when the conversation shifts from how much more do I need to what do I want my time to look like. Why many people overestimate how much is enough? Common pattern I see is people overshooting the real needs, not because they're irresponsible, but because they're planning without structure. They look at balances instead of cash flow. They focus on totals instead of sustainability. Without clarity, uncertainty fills the gap, and uncertainty pushes people to delay retirement, even when the math might already work. Working longer than you need to has a cost, not just financially, but personally. It can delay time with family, health, flexibility, travel, while energy is high meaningful, transition into the next phase of life. This isn't about retiring as early as possible. It's about not postponing life because of unanswered questions. Why I'll just work a few more years often fails. Another pattern I see is people saying, I'll just work a few more years to be safe. The problem is, without a plan, extra years don't create clarity. They create dependency. Work income becomes the default solution instead of temporary bridge. And the longer that continues, the harder it feels to step away. Confidence comes from understanding, not optimism. Retirement confidence doesn't come from optimism. It comes from understanding. Understanding where income comes from, how spending actually works, how taxes interact with withdrawals, how the plan adapts over time. When those pieces are coordinated, retirement stops feeling fragile and starts feeling manageable. Work becomes optional, not mandatory. This is an important distinction. Understanding this doesn't mean everyone should stop working at 58. What it means is that work no longer drives the timeline. Some people keep working because they enjoy it. Some transition to part-time or consulting. Some stop entirely. The difference is intentional. Most people don't arrive at this clarity accidentally either. Not because they're incapable, but because retirement planning is intuitive. It's not taught. It's not linear. And it requires coordination across multiple areas at once. That's why so many smart, successful people feel stuck longer than they expected. A better question than, when can I retire? A better question is, when does work become optional? That's a much more useful goal. And once work becomes optional, retirement timing often moves forward naturally. People don't work past 58 because they lack discipline. They work past 58 because they lack clarity. Once you understand how retirement income actually works, how assets support lifestyle, and how uncertainty can be replaced with structure, work stops being a requirement, and that changes everything. Retirement isn't about stopping working. It's about gaining control over your time. Understand that distinction, and then building a plan around it is what truly changes retirement timing. If you're approaching retirement and want to understand when work truly becomes optional and what your plan needs to support that transition, you can schedule a conversation using the link below. Thank you, and have a great day.